and I'm going to like swing it.
Is it folding? No. Yes. Phones aren't very sticky. Doesn't stick well.
Canadian creativity shop.
See, if it was Canadian, it'd be duct tape, not packaging tape. This is not traditional Canadian tape.
Hi everyone, it's Kasia from Tarot Map, and this is another installment in my Inspired Tarot Map series. And this time I'm hosting Lunaria Gold. Hello. And Lunaria is an artist, and she's the creator of the telluric tarot and the telluric runes, ogham and Phoenician oracle. And it's just amazing because she combines all that I love in her decks. So I thought I would love to, get her on Inspired Tarot Map so she can share a little bit and, you guys can listen to it. So my friend, first question I always ask is about ancestry. Could you share with us where your ancestors are from, where you live, and all this story?
Yeah, well, I am Canadian, so right there, that means lots of ancestries. So I'm a bit of a mutt. So my main ancestry would be my mother's side is French Canadian, so French, and the other side I have Irish, Scottish. I think those are the three main ones basically. But, my first language was French, but now I speak English most of the time. So yeah, a nice Canadian mix, basically.
Yeah, and you live in Canada right now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why probably the interests which took you into the Irish kind of Scottish side a little bit, but not only, but yeah.
The Celtic, because most of my ancestry is from Europe, they do have roots there. And I felt like with the Irish, it's more my uncle's family that's Irish. So I don't have that much blood in me. I have a little bit, but it's far. So I was hoping it wasn't too appropriative, but I asked them and they loved it. So I was like, okay, good. So I wasn't way off with it. So it was nice to have real Irish people next to me able to tell me what they thought about it. So that mattered a lot to me. So
yeah, cool. So let's just, I think people who watch us, I think most of people will know at least one of these decks. And also you have done the Kickstarter for your telluric tarot, which you can show us because I don't have it yet.
But here, I mean, it's the first time I see it finally done. It took a long time, but yeah, funny enough, I haven't used it much because it just came in and I've been shipping boxes of it, so I haven't had much time to play with it, but it is very colorful.
Wow, look at the gilding.
Yes, the gilding is blinding. They did a good job. I was like, it's real gold. It's real gold. You can sell it on eBay. But yeah, the colors, they did a really good job. Like, it took a long time, but it's hard to hold because it's a big deck. It's 83 cards, and I'm used to runes decks. So
yeah.
But are you seeing this properly? There you go. So yeah, they did very good quality job on it. So it was worth all the wait. And the book, that's probably the nicest book I've made so far because I could do the full color and
oh wow.
I was very happy. I said, no, I want photo color everywhere and yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm glad you did the full color just because your art is so beautiful and the minerals when, like you need color for the plant, for mineral, right?
The rocks, they need to be in color. It's so important. And I mean, I'm thinking of updating the runes book at some point so that it's in color too. But, it's taking a little while. But yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So let's just start maybe with your interest in all these things like plants, minerals, and cards, because that's what I was laughing. I was thinking, oh my God, I love crystals. I like, you know, plants as herbs and nature in general. And I love cards so much. And you kind of manage to, you know, do all of it in like one deck, you know, and now you did tarot with it, which is even more like, wow. So what was first of your loves? Was it cards? Was it crystals? Was it plants?
The first was rocks, because that went back to when I was a toddler, basically, like a tiny kid. I always was just drawn to stones, and I read books about them. I had a little rock collection, like at 5 years old. So half of it was like Lego blocks, you know. It wasn't very scientific, but like I really loved picking up rocks and all kinds and try to identify them. So that was the first. And then in my teens, my aunt bought a rune stick, and that's where I learned the runes, and I really took to them very strongly. So that was the second one. And then the plants, it's weird because it's almost like I always had this attraction to plants, but like I can't grow plants myself to save my life. Like, but I'm really drawn to wild plants, like, you know, dandelions and clover. Like they just they make me very happy, you know. So for a while, as part of art, I did botanical illustration. So, and you know, you get into the little details of the plants and learning about them, and that just grew naturally. Like it's like I didn't even know I was a plant person, and someone says you're so into plants, and I said, I guess I am. You know, it just kind of grew naturally, and then I found out, oh, okay, well, I'm into plants too. So there it is, and that's how they kind of naturally merge together, because they're all very earth related. So it was like a natural growth, basically.
Yeah, and if you were to say like about your process, because each of your decks, so even the new tarot deck, it's kind of similar idea. There's a mineral,
Yeah.
so there is a plant, and there is like, here is the rune, and in tarot you would have a tarot archetype probably depicted somehow. So
Yeah.
what's the process like? Because I feel like there's a lot of research that has to go into it, so you kind of mix.
Yeah. It really, there's like a system now. But the way it started, like with the runes, uh, it it just came out like it took me 1 month to do everything. It just I still don't understand how it happened that way, but I had all of them in my head. They just popped in. Or rather, the first one was Manaz. And I don't know why. It was basically there's the iris and the amethyst, and I'm just gonna go with it. And as I drew each of them, it's like the choice of stone and the choice of plant with the rune naturally came together. Like I never really had to research much for the runes, because it's like I instantly thought, oh, of course Isa is going to be snowflake obsidian. Like in my head, it made total sense. There was no question about it. So then it was a matter of explaining it to other people, like in the book.
Yeah.
That took longer because it was so organic to me that when people were like, well, okay, so what's the story? I was like, I need to make sure it makes sense, you know, and it's not just stream of consciousness, but it worked very well. Like it gave me no problems. I didn't actually do that much research because it was all stones I was very familiar with. So they were like best friends, you know, and I said, you're going with this one, you're going with this one, and we're all happy. You know? So it was very, very organic.
That's interesting. And I think that sometimes it happens like this because, you know, when I was creating the wands, like it was sometimes these things just come to you. The whole upload, I sometimes knew the name, what's for, like how it works, what color I need to add, what other element I need to add, what goes with what. And yeah, you can't really explain it. Like it's not a thinking kind of process. It's different type of.
It's almost like something wants you to see it, and you say, it's here. Like that's how you just go with it, you know.
I just find it I don't know, just the coloring and how alive the plants and the minerals are. And it's not so easy to draw minerals. I always find that, you know, there's a lot of crystal oracles and stuff that sometimes they just come so flat, like they just so flat.
It's,
But
I think because I am trained in gemology, so I'm used to looking at crystals like in a microscope. So it was really important to have the depth, you know, and even showing like the types of impurities you see. They all have a different texture, you know, like they're not all just shiny. There's a lot, like some have bubbles, some don't, some are very sharp, others are kind of gnarly. So I really wanted to bring out the texture of each of them, and I think it worked.
Yeah, it worked. And with ogham, I'm just going to go first with these decks that I have and I love. You used poetry from like the old text.
That was really, again, that channeling, that was not me at all. Like this came, I started at first with when I did the drawing and completely restarted because I was going with the Celtic tree astrology at first. And then suddenly something said, no, go something different because it's going to be a different message, basically. And also because I wasn't born in Ireland, I really wanted all the words on the oracle to be from Ireland. I didn't want to put my own words on something that I wasn't, you know, like I did research and everything, but I really wanted every word because ogham is an alphabet. It has to do with language. And I really wanted to pay homage to the actual language. So I said, poetry. I'm going to read Irish poetry and Gaelic poetry. And I read about probably 300 something because I had to read whatever was translated so I could understand exactly what it said. But it was great. It was a fun process because I learned a lot while doing it. And it was like I was discovering it at the same time as anyone else. So I'm very happy with that one because it took me somewhere I didn't even know I was going. And I do get a lot of questions about it though, because people are sometimes a bit like that was a very different direction, you know? And I'm like, I know, but you know, when the trees tell you to go somewhere, you just go. You don't question them, you know?
So if I can ask you about the poem, so you picked, it's actually not, like that was your personal choice. It's not that these concrete poems were connected to the tree or, no, you just picked whatever you felt would be kind of going with the direction of the meaning of the tree, how it's like translated usually in the ogham system, right?
Yeah, that's it. Because when you go with the old ogham, like the scholar's primer, I don't know how to pronounce it in Irish, so I'm saying it in English, but it's the source of the connections with the trees. I think it's from the 4th century. And there is a phrase for each of them that kind of describes, it's almost like a bit of poetry, but it's 2-3 words. And it says like fairest of trees or the color of a corpse, you know, like that's the one for the paler. So I tried to kind of use the poetry to build on that. Basically.
Okay, cool. Because otherwise I thought like, wow, that would be difficult to go through all those poetry, you know, like and pick.
It like I basically read like any poetry I could find. Like it dates from like 1,000 years to much more modern poetry, but there's a range. And I basically read until something would come up and I'd say, this is perfect for that one, or this is really saying this one. And it was like hunting for them, you know. It took a long time, but it was very enjoyable because I read a bunch of poetry, of Irish poetry. I wouldn't have done that necessarily without having done the ogham. So.
Yeah, no, that's really, really cool. I was actually really surprised because I thought, you know, that it will be just like a description in the back. And when I saw the deck properly, I was like, oh, wow, this actually is a poem. This is really cool. And yeah, you know, I thought like, wow, you had to go through a lot of trouble, meaning research, and doing a lot of this to kind of get this done. So even though it's a small deck, right? I thought like, wow.
Good thing it wasn't a tarot. If it was 78 more, that would have been a little bit hard. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you went on to do the tarot deck, you already knew tarot, obviously, right? You were interested always in this side of like the divination systems?
Yeah, like I was familiar with the tarot because I discovered it around the same time that I did the runes when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
So it's been a while. Um, I think naturally myself, I tend to do more readings with the runes. But I was still very familiar because I had done lots of like Celtic cross readings with the tarot. Like I was very familiar with using one. And then I always said, well, I can use more rocks because again, there's so much more cards. And that was really like my big indulgent thing there. I said, if I do the tarot, I can include every single mineral I know. Like, I mean, it's going to be a whole collection.
Wow.
So that was my goal, really.
So it
It's really,
came from the, I'm sorry, it came from the love of rocks and the
yeah,
minerals.
after I did the runes, well, there's only 24.
Yeah.
And then there were all these rocks going, you didn't use me, like I said, oh, I should have used that one and this one, but there wasn't enough. And I said, oh, well, that one, I can go with everything, like
Mm.
there's still a few I haven't managed to mention, but, maybe at some point.
I totally get you because I think if I was to say, then rocks or like stones would be my first and my favorite teachers for a very, very long time. Still, they are, but
Yeah.
like now I sit a lot in tarot and with cards, and mostly I do like it just energy, like the volume shifted a little bit, but I've been working with stones for years, like, and yeah, I've learned a lot from stones. So
Much energy to them. And that's actually another issue that I find a lot of people have, because I have the same problem, is like stones are expensive. Like, if you love, all the minerals, well, only a few of them you can realistically get for yourself. Like if you want to meditate with a quartz crystal, that's fairly easy to get. But like to get a sapphire or a ruby, like it
yeah.
gets, some things are rare. And I said, it'd be nice if people could hold in their hand the energy of that stone, but without having to actually buy the stone. And that's what like really at the base, the tarot was meant as a rock collection that everybody could hold, and every stone is equal. Like there's no price attached to them, there's no value, there's no rarity. It's every one of them is the same basically, and you get all of them.
So
That was
how did you, sorry, I'm butting in.
no, no.
Now I wanted to ask, how did you, because you probably didn't own each of the stones, or did you? Or did you go to like museums or somewhere where you could, or found it online? How you...
Yeah, because I was a gemologist as a job. I mean, I've encountered lots of rocks while working, so I had that background basically.
Yeah.
Like, but I don't make any more money than anyone else, so I don't have sapphires, I don't have emeralds, I have quartz. So it was really just drawing into all that I had experienced with rocks, and just putting it in without being a textbook, about rocks, because it needed to tie in with other things. But it went very well. Like I really enjoyed actually connecting each rock to each meaning of the tarot. Like it was, again, it kind of was fairly easy. Like there were some things that just kind of called out, that they said, oh, this has to be this stone. Others, they would be like several contenders, and I'd have to kind of narrow it down. But
Was there anything that was really difficult to any card that you could, like, you couldn't quite get the right components?
there was a few where I initially did one, and then later on, as I did others, I said, I have to change the plant, or I have to change the rock. Only about two, though. There was one that was the Six of Swords. I don't remember the other one offhand, but I did switch. Oh yeah, the Fool, the first one, the Fool. I initially had Herkimer Diamond and Maple, and for some reason that completely just turned into Rubus arcticus, which is like a little berry flower, and Labradorite. And that was just like, this is it. This is supposed to be that. The other one, sorry, but it didn't work out. But,
Well, from personal perspective, I think Labradorite fits the Fool better than Herkimer Diamond.
just good. I'm happy I made the good
Yeah.
decision.
Just because Labradorite is this kind of has this magic of like those portals, like you can kind of go so many ways, you know, with it, and it's like so kind of
very
yeah,
rainbowy.
yeah, you can't really easily like limit it or you know like put it into a box. Whereas
That's
Herkimer Diamond, I don't know, it just seems more focused and
yeah.
even like
I was going with it because it's so clear, you know, like you can see right through it, and that was this clarity.
okay.
But it was like it was too hard, or maybe it wasn't raw enough. Like the labradorite it's more, you know, it's not polished in facets. It's like a massive stone. It was the light coming out of a rock basically, and I said this is better, this is
Yeah,
working. Like
and kind of more playful maybe Labradorite as well, which kind of would
yeah,
fit the
class,
other side of the pool.
yeah, it worked like that one. Once I was like, if this is bugging me, and then once I picked the right choice, then it didn't bug me anymore. Like
Yeah,
this is
yeah,
like
yeah.
either it bugs me and it's not okay, and then it stops bugging me, it means it's okay. Like this is the amount of questioning. Not on.
So I think we're not going maybe to show too many cards because I will link all of the because the photos will be better than the Zoom video. They're not, you can't see really very nicely anyway, and people can see the photos on your Instagram account or is there any other websites? I'm going to link all of it, so it's going to be in the description box, anyone who wants to take a look. But I wanted to also pick your brains a little bit about this Phoenician oracle. That's the newest one. Um,
Uh, yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I keep thinking of the tarot being the newest one because it
yeah.
came out. Like it's not. It's the Phoenician. Yeah.
So
Well,
when I saw it, I was just thinking, what's Phoenician? You know, like it kind of like I heard it, of course, before, but I'm like, I don't actually know what it is. Who were the Phoenicians? And I even had to go and Google, you know, but I thought maybe you can tell us a little bit more, like why this and how come you know, like what happened?
well, I was in the same boat. Like what happened again is uh, I was thinking of alphabet because again I'm drawn to runes the most and like ogham things like things with symbols like letter symbol, and I said, you know, what is the oldest alphabet? And just as curiosity, and then found the Phoenician alphabet, and then found it's basically the root to almost every alphabet, like any Western alphabet. Like I hadn't realized it was that broad, basically. And I was just, and I saw how every letter has a meaning, just like the runes. I said, well, this is a whole new set of runes, basically. And then when I looked for an oracle or divination from it, there wasn't any, which completely freaked me out because I said that it's right there. Like, I mean, are you, what's going on? But I was the same way with the Phoenicians. I had heard the name, you
Yeah,
know, but especially in comparison to Greeks and to
yeah,
Romans, you know. And I was like, okay, but like, who are they? And I went on a trip. Like, I was in Bronze Age Mediterranean solid for like months. I just didn't come out for air because it was so interesting. But that was the thing with the Phoenicians is that's why nobody knows about them because they were everywhere. Like they were basically a very mercantile society. They survived through exchange with other cultures. So they ended up blending with other cultures instead of having their own territory. Like they had city states, but they kept mingling with like the Egyptians and the Greeks and the Mesopotamian people, like Babylonians, and it kept changing depending where they were set. They kept kind of changing their own culture that it matched with the rest of the culture, but they always had their core little system basically. But it ended up that they almost disappeared. They're almost in the background of everybody. But I was trying to kind of pick them out and bring them out, and that's what happened. That's how the Phoenician oracle happened. As I said, I'm just going to single out the Phoenicians and away from the Greeks, away from the Egyptians, and try to see what happens.
well, can you show
So
us a few cards from this one maybe? Just like I saw it on your Instagram as well, but I just thought like, wow, how did you
so
come
yeah,
up
with the map. And yeah, so the art is a bit different than the others because instead of being my style, I was trying to kind of go with Phoenician artwork. Is it shiny? Yeah, it's shiny. So that's the
So
card of water.
what letter would that be?
That would be equivalent to M. It's mem. It would be the sound M, and the meaning is water. And that's the other thing with each letter comes from an Egyptian hieroglyph. They kind of went to, because at the time you had the Egyptians hieroglyphs, and they basically just simplified certain hieroglyphs and turned them into these little simpler glyphs.
Sorry,
So all of
can I show you something? Wait, I'm just going to change this because I pulled this card. It just remind me these two fish and the lotus. And it's not the letter, but it's interesting that it looks a little bit similar.
Right? Like they had the waves, you know, like it's, you can see it's illustrated water, basically. You have the little, like a kid's drawing. And I actually, the other one, Noon, which is N, is a water serpent. And it's very similar too. It's like a wave, but now, of course, it's the one at the bottom of the pile, but maybe I don't have it here. But every letter visually represents something. Like this is a goad, like the tool for this lit up to guide sheep. This one is the house, Beth. It's very illustrative. Like even the letters, they kind of tell you what they are, and that's why it wrote itself. Like I said, I didn't really need. I just needed to do research, but I didn't invent anything. Everything was right in there. So I just wrote about it, basically.
So basically you, in the oracle cards themselves, you added a little bit of the meaning of the letter through showing a little bit, like if that means a house, you added a little kind of bit of the house into the background or some. Awesome.
Yeah, that's it. Like it's very much this one is it's some are more abstract. Like this one is mark. Like it's basically just a mark, but I associated it in the book with the goddess of the sun. So I put the sun on the card there. So I kind of incorporated a lot of Mesopotamian gods, because the Phoenicians kind of really just adopted a lot of gods from that region, like from all over Mediterranean. So it kind of covers a lot of cultures a lot of times. So I didn't really mention gods on the cards themselves. I just kind of allow people, if they want to use those gods, they can do it through the book, basically. And then some of the cards I made an association visually, but I didn't want to be too strong-handed with it, because I knew other people have their own gods they want to work with, so I didn't want to kind of like push it too much on that. But if they're interested, though, I hope I made it fairly easy to incorporate those gods into the game, basically.
And the booklet is kind of around the thickness of the runic book, or do you have it there?
It's a little bit thicker, but it's about the same size. Like that's the.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't expect it. I thought it would be like, just a little one.
Yeah, no, it's because I had a lot of information in that one. So that's it's also in color. It's not as photographic color as the tarot book, but I thought, I want color. So yeah, there's a lot more introduction. There's an introduction to the Phoenicians themselves, the Phoenician alphabet, like it describes where it comes from. There's a little historical map, because I was like, I want to put a map in there. It's map geek. I explained the oracle, how to use it, and then the divinations.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So yeah, like for example, some of them, they'll have an associated deity that I mentioned here, but if someone wants to work with another deity, they just ignore it, basically. So
wonderful. No, but that's cool, because yeah, people can just work with alphabet itself, or with letters, or with symbols, or whatever the letters remind them of. Or yeah,
that's it.
So do you use cards for yourself, like for yourself in general in your practice?
I use the runes for myself
mostly.
Occasionally I'll use the others, but for some reason, when it's about me and I'm doing a reading for me, it's always the runes. And I use the telluric runes, and it's like, it's my home, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, my
Some,
question was about your favorite divination system, but you answered it. So it would be the runes, right? It's like the closest to your heart. And how do
yeah,
you use them? You just pull runes, or you throw them, or how do you?
I usually kind of shuffle and then usually pick three. And it's like either how was it before, what's going on now, what should I be doing later, or sometimes just I give a three to be just a bit more complete, like what direction I should be going,
Yeah,
basically. So that's it's really simple. It's really organic. I don't really do very complex arrangements. Like that's why when people sometimes they ask me how should I read my cards, I'm not the very best person to answer because I'm like I just do what I want. Like I do what I feel.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, it's very basic system.
And with your tarot deck, would you use it? Because I always find, there's always a lot of questions later on, like how do you use those very unique, original, different tarot decks where you don't have any, not even no humans, because sometimes there is no humans, but you have like, animals doing the human thing, or like in your cards, you will have only like the plant and the mineral. And if you don't know anything, obviously you have the companion book to get familiar a little bit, but you did capture, like you kind of hold on to the tarot structure and the archetypal things
Yes,
in the cards. You did.
that's really it's almost like the tarot. My tarot is like a hybrid between my method, which is like if I would have done it just myself for myself, I would have just have done rocks and plants, nothing else. Like I wouldn't have added information. I would just kind of use the meaning of the plant and the meaning of the stone and what they mean to me
Yeah.
and just from that. But obviously I wanted people to be able to have a bit of guidance. So I really just kind of translated what's widely known about each card and kind of apply it to each stone and every stone and plant really was chosen specifically for the meaning of that plant. Sometimes it's not necessarily that obvious why, because it's very intuitive, like I mean, in some cases I could have said, oh yeah, it's because this stone is strength because it's a very strong stone, it's very hard.
Yeah.
Some were just more kind of, I'm getting this feeling from this stone, like I mean, and it's just the way it is. And I mean, I want people to be able to kind of step back, look at the elements and really kind of listen to what they mean to them. And
Yeah.
even if they don't go with exactly what's written, this is fine, like if anything, I kind of prefer if people feel free to not follow the guide, basically.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And make your own, because I think it's really for people who might not know this, because you also mentioned it before. I think there is something like, like let's call it Akashic records, but you can connect to the spirit of anything, meaning like a tree or a plant or like a nature spirit, which is the spirit of the, like a species, so like every mineral would have some form of like energetic matrix. You don't have to own actually the mineral. It's nice to have a representation so that you can like connect even better, but you can just do it basically in your mind's eye if you choose to. And
yeah,
if you
that's
allow this, if you practice, if you open, like you will receive also the, information or whatever you ask for.
that's what I was hoping for. Like that right there was my important contribution to it. Like to at the base, I really wanted to use everything I knew about stones and inject as much as I could so that people could access their energy. Like for example, when I draw them, the crystal structure, I always make sure that I show the actual a facet that shows the crystal structure because it belongs to that stone. If it's a different structure, it's not the same stone, right? So I was really careful to be accurate, and the color, same thing, and the characteristic, because it was like you can have this instead of having the actual real stone if you can't get it, because I mean some of them are really rare, like you could never really find one, or certainly not find it that big, like I mean often you'll find crystals and they're so tiny and said here you have a nice big one.
Yeah, like
So
opal or something, right? Or like, yeah.
like benitoite. Like I love, like what a beautiful stone. But I mean, it's like one of the rarest ever, and you're not going to encounter that very often in your life, if ever, you know. So I said, but it's right in there, and it has this beautiful structure, beautiful color, and you get to enjoy it, you know.
Yeah, I just find it like awesome that you had this genealogy background, so that you actually, you know, were familiar with the structure and were kind of sensitive around how to depict it. And you are
Yeah,
and a genealogist, so that's really cool.
I went really, like, this was very self-indulgent. Like I could work with my obsession and
Yeah,
nobody minded, you know. So it was
yeah,
like,
yeah.
wait, this, I'm all about rocks. I'm only going to talk about rocks for months, and this is it. So, and it worked. It was perfect. My plan worked.
That's awesome. So if I ask you like, what's your favorite mineral? Is it plausible question or is it annoying? Because to me it was always annoying, but maybe you have a favorite one. I don't know.
It's, yeah, that's like, there's there's really too many, and it's also like the fact that they're all different makes it even better. Like I couldn't pick one best, because when they're all together, it's like the rainbow of how different they are, you know. So if you take them out by elimination, you lose the fact that they're all great, you know. There's some that I'm kind of closer to, because I don't know why, but like I knew, like for example, I knew they had to be in there, like because there are some that didn't make it. Like there's
Yeah.
tons of minerals, right? But like econite, for some reason, I always love the meaning of that stone. It's a very rare stone. It's a very radioactive stone. So people can't own it because it's actually quite dangerous. But the special thing about that rock is that its crystal structure breaks down under its own radioactive elements. So it's usually like a glass, but it does have a crystal structure. It's just that it breaks down with time from its own content. And I'm like, this is very poetic, because it's like a living, so it basically transforms and almost dies a little, like an organic, like a plant, like that wilts, or like an animal that gets old and die. And I was like, this is as close to a living thing a rock is gonna get when it just gradually breaks down, you know, just sitting.
Wow.
So I said that one, I knew it had to be in there. So I do have my favorites in
So
terms of,
where is this one in tarot? Which one, which archetype did you pick?
that one is the, see, now I can't think that quickly. It's the, see, because that I don't use the swords and the cups in my deck, so I think the card, and wait, I have the book here.
It's okay if you don't remember, that's fine. I was just thinking maybe you say death or something, or transformation.
It's definitely, the meaning of it is the one that says, like, you know, the on the typical one, it's the one where the guy is up in bed and really upset.
Nine of swords.
Yes, there you
Nine
go.
of
I
swords. Yeah.
was like, which one is it? But yeah, that's the one who's plagued by nightmares, basically. And that was it. It was telling you this thing inside you is breaking you down. You need to kind of come back to your own shape, you know. That
Oh,
was
okay.
that one. So this one, that was one of the earliest one I knew it would be that, and it would be in there because it just worked, you know. So I guess that was my favorite right there.
Yeah, no, that's cool because you know, I like to me, I just probably if I was to pick one mineral and they said like every other mineral would go, I would probably pick clear quartz. I just love clear quartz in
Yeah, well,
all its forms.
it's such a beautiful, I mean, and it's good that it's common enough that people can actually get it, because it's such beautiful, well-shaped crystals. Like you really, you get big ones and you get beautiful facets. I love drawing quartz. Like it's one of my favorite to draw, because you always know, oh yeah, I get to draw the nice big long pointy crystal. Like quartz is like the Instagram.
It's crystal that looks like crystal.
The crystal. You know who was saying that? There was someone, like, I talked and they were like, it's basically like the poster crystal. It's the
Yeah.
everybody's crystal. I said, yeah, that's it. Like it's
Yeah.
the poster
But I
child.
remember in the beginning of my mineral stories, I thought it was boring, you know, I'm like, oh, just clear quartz is everywhere. Like, it's kind of like, I didn't really get the power of the quartz. And the more I was working with different minerals, I was just like, more and more. I mean, you know, don't get me wrong, I love so many of them, but yeah, just the clear quartz because of the variety. It's Lemurian, it's this one, the shapes, the, you know, the time links, the whatever they come in. Like, I just somehow, I don't know, love it, love it.
Their simplicity is nice,
Yeah.
you know. It doesn't have to be like, that's what I like about the whole lineup. Again, it's the fact that some of them are super expensive, some of them are really rare, some of them are not rare at all, but like they're all equal. Like there's no value, like they're all valuable. You have to just look at them all for what they are, basically.
Yeah. So do you have your crystal collection in your home still? Do you still collect any minerals?
I do. Like, the thing is, it's collecting minerals is expensive. Like it has to be a huge investment unless you want, like, you know, I have a few quartz, I have some pyrite. Like, you know, sometimes I'll see one and it's available and I'm like, okay, fine, I'll buy it. But it's not an organized
No, no.
collection. Yeah. If I, and there's also the fact that if I allow myself to start buying rocks, that's gonna be trouble. Like it's gonna be, no, like you have to just stay away, because sometimes I'm on Etsy and there's some beautiful mineral seller and they're like, oh, look at that thing
They're
there, it's
calling you.
dollars. I mean, it's not that bad. I'm like, no, don't go there.
But if we came to visit you, we would probably find some minerals in your place, right?
Oh yeah. And you'd find books. Like I have mineral textbooks all over the place. So it's obvious there's something going on there. Like, I mean, I'm not covered rock person, so yeah, I'm clearly, I have a lot of rocks. You know, like sometimes I'll just pick up stones outside because they're nice. So I still have that kid way to do it. Like you just, oh, a nice rock, pick it right up. It's good.
Yeah, same, same. So, okay, so I think we're going to slowly wrap it up. Is there any other way, like if you were to use cards? So I know that you use runes most, love like this, your preferred one, but if you use cards, like how do you use cards? Is there any specific way or anything you can share in your own practice?
Again, what's really important to me is to really be to start with something very simple and small and try to get a meaning from that without tagging too much explanation to it. Like, I mean, again, just sometimes it's just looking at the stone or just the plant or just the general feeling, and really just paying attention to what I'm feeling at that moment, and not like, oh yes, this was supposed to mean this, but it's like, does it still mean that now? Like, just pay attention, because sometimes I'll draw a card that I draw obviously many times before, but that day it's not telling me the same thing. It's like I suddenly see a new message from it. Like it totally just comes out of the woodwork, and it's like, yeah, no, you know what, today this is what you need to pay attention to, and it's completely different than usual, and not argue with it. I just like kind of practice to just make sure that I'm always more into my own voice, or the voice of whatever's talking to me, than the known answers, you know, the previous known answers. Because I
Yeah.
mean, there's nothing wrong with them, but sometimes it's pulling you somewhere else. Just go, you know, like don't argue with it, basically.
Yeah, I spoke once with Enrique Enriquez, and he said like it's so important to experience this like this. You know, when you, he said like this, he gave this example, when you look at the sunset, you know, you don't need words to describe the sunset.
Yeah.
Like, you know how it makes you feel. And sometimes with images, I think it's lovely to practice this. That like, yeah, you know your tarot and you have all this traditional meaning to support you if you need to, but once you know it, you can break free through the system. And I always teach this, that like, you know, you can do both. You can still have your traditional meaning to like fall back onto after your initial experience, and you can add another level or another phase of the meaning, but it's
Well, you have to
beautiful.
choose between the two. Like they're not in conflict. It's
Exactly.
really a matter of, like, I mean, I do experience a lot of people that will, let's say, ask me like, what should I do, like what, and the thing is, see, that's the key difference. I think I'm more like an oracle in that I create oracles, but I'm not a tarot reader, right? Like they are people who are tarot or card readers, and to me it's a different trade. Like it's a different craft. Like, and I'm like, these people, they're much more they know how to communicate, how to read to other people. I don't. I know how to read for me, and I don't want to pollute them. I don't want to be like, oh yeah, you need to do this and this and that.
Yeah.
Well, no, I don't. This is what I do, but like maybe I'm going to take you somewhere wrong if I tell you too much, about what I do. So I always try to kind of just give the art and give the elements. And if people want to talk to me about it, I'm always happy. But I'm really careful not to prescribe steps. I'm always like, just run with it. Whatever feels good. I mean, this is what's going to be your answer.
And I think your book, I have, I only have one until now, the one from the runes. It's lovely because it speaks about the stone, it speaks about the plant, and it gives a little bit of like inspiration for you, my imagination to run with it, because I don't know runes too much. So it's always lovely. But I also have my own associations with the plants, and I have some of my own associations with the stone. So, you also add from your own experience, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's
very important. It needs to be a starting point, not like the destination. That's really important to me, that it gives room for people to just, it's a catalyst. It starts the process. It's not a wall.
It's not the end of, that's all that is to this card, and it would be impossible to describe a card in a companion book, I think, right? Because it's such a multi-layered archetype.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think if you don't have anything else to add, do you want to say anything else, or?
Pretty much covered, everything. When I was thinking in my head, that was everything, actually.
Yeah. Do we want to advertise anything else? People can buy the telluric tarot right now. Is it, or you shipping the Kickstarter, right? Or is it able
right now, it's like I have a big shipment coming of them. It's on a boat. It's slow, so they can actually pre-order it, and it most likely will ship in. It's supposed to arrive in early July, but I mean, again, the customs are slow, so I can't. That's why I did a pre-order, because I'm like, I can't predict any timings with the mail. But if they want to reserve it, because the only thing with the tarot is that I'll have a fair bit, but it's the only order I can do this year. Like there's not going to be more this year, because it's just too slow. Like it's not going to. So if someone wants it for Christmas or something, now is a good time. So I have in my Etsy store, there is a pre-order. Okay. If they want to. Yeah. So it's more like a recipe.
Good information to know, because sometimes people think, once you print it, you just be printing it and the stock is always available.
Yeah, like, I mean, normally it's no problem. It's just with the tarot, there's also the problem that that company, I have to make a big bulk order with them. It's longer. It's a lot more clunky process than the other decks are fine. Like those I have on a roll, no problem. But the tarot is a little bit pickier. Like it's gonna come in batches, basically.
Yeah, cool. Okay, thank you so much for being a guest. And
thank you so much. That was fun. Thank you for being patient with my tape situation.
Great to meet you. So I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you everyone for watching, and I see you another time. Bye.